Hey guys, earlier this week I made my own first little selfie video. We talked about electrical extension cords, the dangers that happen with them. I showed you this. This one caught on fire on me about a year ago, almost burned down a building. And I thought it would be a good time with Christmas here to talk about what's important to think about when we look for extension cords, the size, the style, the different types that are there, how not to overcharge them, and what makes them dangerous or not dangerous. So I thought we'd start with the entry-level cords. These are available everywhere. This is probably a dollar store cord. I don't know if you can see this on here, but there's about 18 things that are like these caution, don't use for this, don't use for that. What you're seeing on a cord like this is just a 2-wire cord. We're going to do more stuff about electrical in the future, but this is a 2-wire cord, a hot and a neutral, a single plug with no ground, and out at the outlet of it, you have a spot to plug in 3 separate plugs. This cord is basically garbage. It has a very limited use. What it's recommended for is things like simple lamps, a Christmas tree, maybe use it to charge your phone, things like that. There is no protection to this plug. Where you do see problems where these can catch fire and cause issues, they do heat up if they are overcharged. In other words, if you have too many appliances plugged into the end of these, it starts to take too much power through this, and they're designed as like basically entry-level light-duty plugs. Too much power comes through this, they overheat, they can catch fire. These should never be put under rugs, they should never be put under couches, even though no one likes to see them. This is something you want to see and know what's happening with. It gives you spots for 3 plugs. You do not have to fill all 3, but you do not want to put more than 3 on here. You don't want to put extension cords. What you don't want to do is install another extension cord on this, because now you have more spaces to plug things in. This causes fires. Use these very simple lamps, maybe the small Christmas tree. What I hate seeing these on, when I used to do a lot of residential, I'd walk into a particular kids' rooms and they'll have their computer plugged in, they'll have their phone plugged in, they'll have their lamp plugged in, they'll have their TV plugged in, and they're overusing what the capacity of is this cord, and this can cause a problem long term. Keep these, they're handy, do not use them outside, and only use them for simple things on the inside of the house. And never plug one into the other to extend the distance or the range or the amount of outlets at the end. That's a problem. Entry level, low use. What you go into next is kind of what they call like the middle use plug. Now you're seeing a 3-prong plug. You're hot, you're neutral, and now you have a ground in here. These are certainly safer. If you can see as a side-by-side, they're actually thicker. So they're a little bit of a thicker plug, which means they can carry a little bit more current, which means they can handle a little bit more heat. Again, it's a 3-prong outlet. You're never designed to use this and extend it to now a 6-prong outlet. You want to make sure you plug 3 things into this. Where you're going to see a use for this is small tools. So you have a cement mixer, or you have a small table saw, something like that. This is capable of handling a little bit more heat, a little bit more power. This is my own personal cord, and the one thing I want to tell you that is very dangerous in cords, and you see this at everyone's house I've ever been to, an old cord that someone patched, or they cut it at one point and they thrown electrical tape on. I've done this myself. This is a weak point to the cord. This is an area where you can cause problems. On a commercial job site, if an inspector came through and saw this cord would be thrown away. This has no place in your house or on commercial projects. Once you have a damaged nick like this, in a couple videos we'll show you how to change the head on this and make this safe again. But if you have cords like this at home, which I know you do, consider throwing them away. As we move downstream into like what's considered the mid to heavy grade cords, what you're seeing now, this cord lights up when it's on. It actually shows you it's on. The gauge is a bit thicker, so this is a 12 gauge. This is now capable of carrying up to 20 amps. On this, I can now run my bigger extension cords, my bigger tools, my bigger table saws, things like that. And one thing to point out when you think about cords is distance matters. Power, as it travels a long distance, it actually loses its capacity. So you'll see cords that are, in this case, this is about 15 feet. This is probably worth about $40. When you go into the cords that are 100 feet at heavy gauge, those cords are worth $200 or $300 because it's very thick wire to make sure the transfer of the power starts at the beginning and at the end you have the same amount of capacity. So Last thing to talk about is these little, I'll call this a mini surge protector. This is basically a glorified power bar, plugs into your wall. You'll see this in a lot of like office space. This is where your kids are doing their homework, things like that. This thing's worth about 10 bucks. It has an on-off. It says it has a surge protector. Surge protector is important when you have lightning strikes, power spikes up and down. If you live in the country, that happens all the time. When you see your lights flicker, that's a surge. This little power bar that costs you $10 is actually protecting typically what the most expensive things in your house. If you have an Apple laptop, that's a $2,000 item. If you have an iPad, that's a $1,000 item. Your phones, forget about it, that's 2,000 bucks. You have it plugged into a little $10 outlet that maybe isn't capable of carrying the current or causing problems. If you're gonna spend any money, don't use these. Go to a more robust setup. Has a few more outlets. This has a dedicated USB bar. It actually is gonna tell you that, hey, we're grounded. You're grounded through your ground protection and your surge protection is on. The outlets are covered so dust and other debris can't fall into them. And this thing is very robust. Oftentimes these bigger power bars will actually have an extended warranty that they can offer downstream of any appliances that get damaged. Spend some money on what will protect the most expensive tools and equipment in your home.